Birria tacos. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, better late than never. It's all about the flavorful braising liquid. I'm gonna show you how to make it, starting with our dried chilies. The three we're using to make the sauce are guajillo chilies, ancho chilies, and chile de arbol. I'm gonna start by removing the stem and the seeds from all of these. You can kind of hear them shake inside, and then you can just dump out all the seeds. You can leave the seeds in there if you want it extra spicy. There's gonna be just a lot of flavors going on throughout. I don't wanna overpower that with a bunch of heat. Once that's done, I'm just gonna add these into some boiling water and let them steep and soften for about 5 minutes. Then we're just gonna crank off the heat, let them cool completely. In the meantime, let's sear the meat. This right here is the star of the show. This is a good beef chuck roast, and that's what we're using today. Start by making sure your meat is really dry. That's the way to get a good sear on it. And then this is not in the recipe, but when I'm searing something that I'm eventually just gonna shred anyway, I like to cut it into some chunks instead of just one big piece. That way you've got a lot more surface area to get that good brown crispy bits. Chuck roast has a lot of marbling throughout. As this slow cooks, it's gonna become just so tender and just melt in your mouth. Next, I just want to generously season it with some salt and pepper. I like to get one side seasoned and in the pan, and then I'll season the other sides. The method here is just like you make any other kind of pot roast or beef stew. Get it good and seared on the outside, then we're gonna add our liquid in. That's the sound you want to hear. If it doesn't sizzle right away, your pan is not hot enough. Once I get that seasoned side down, I'm gonna go in and season the other sides. Don't skip this step. This is the first and greatest layer of flavor. While the meat is searing, I'm going to grill off our tomatoes. Grilling your tomatoes is going to develop another sort of rich, smoky flavor to this whole sauce. All those good crusty bits, that's what I'm talking about. Once our meat is all seared and our tomatoes are cooked, we're going to throw this all in the blender and make the best sauce ever. Now we're making that sauce that plays so many important roles in this whole dish. We're just going to add these soaked chilies right to the blender. But you don't want to discard all that liquid. You want to save some because it's going to go in our broth. All right, now we're going to add those tomatoes. This is what you're looking for. They've got a little char on the outside. They're soft and juicy on the inside. They're starting to kind of wilt a little bit. You can just throw them straight in the blender just like that. And now we'll add a whole bunch of flavors straight from our spice cabinet, starting with just some white vinegar, 2 cloves of garlic, 4 whole cloves, and then just a little dash of everything, starting with cinnamon, cumin, some ground thyme, a little marjoram, and oregano. A couple teaspoons of black pepper and a little salt. And then I'm gonna take about a 1/4 cup of our chili pepper soaking liquid to start. Blend her up. I mean, just look at that color. You can just tell by looking at it how much flavor is in there. We've got our meat that's been all nice and caramelized. I'm just gonna strain this sauce right over the meat, and we're gonna toss it and make sure it's all fully coated. I mean, you could stop here and just put this straight over a shoe, and it's gonna taste good. You're straining it just in case there are any big chunks of seeds or peel left from the peppers, but I don't want any of this to go to waste. I'm just tempted to pour the whole daggone thing over it. I don't see anything alarming in here. Let's do it. The acid from the tomatoes and the vinegar that's in that sauce is gonna lift all those brown bits off the bottom of the pan. And I really love deglazing a pan because it's just an easier way to do the dishes. Got all the flavor bits scraped up. I'm gonna make sure the meat is nice and coated all in the sauce. Once your meat is all fully slathered in the sauce, we're gonna cover this whole thing and let it go in the oven at 325 for about 4 hours. You're gonna wanna check and baste it with this sauce every, 45 minutes to an hour or so. But since we cut ours in chunks, our meat is staying submerged, so you might not have to baste it quite as much. Once you've got the tenderness of your meat achieved, you're gonna uncover it and let it go for about 20 minutes or until the tops get nice and browned. And once it's completely done, cover it with foil and let it rest. Y'all get ready. Get ready. Just look at that color. That fat that has risen to the top, that is the liquid gold of this recipe. So I'll remove the meat to a cutting board, and then we're gonna strain off that liquid gold from the top. That fatty layer, you don't wanna stir it back in because you wanna get that kind of greasiness off the top. All those chili peppers lend such a deep red richness to this. The rest of the cooking liquid has reduced and concentrated, so it's super rich and thick. Y'all, I mean, you don't even have to barely even touch it, and it's just falling apart. This is so good. I would make this over pot roast any day. Those chilies lend such a depth of flavor to this dish. It doesn't make it spicy. Of course, we removed the seeds from the peppers and that really helps, but you still get all that good chili flavor. I'm gonna put this back into this saucy goodness, get it nice and coated, and then we're heading to the stove to turn these into queso tacos. This is where the magic happens. Basically, we're building a combination of a quesadilla and a taco. We're gonna use some of that greasy goodness that we skimmed off the top to cook our tortilla in. You can dip your tortilla in it, or you can just add some to your skillet. Take your tortilla, give it a little coating, and let it fry up a bit. I like to let it start getting nice and puffy and about halfway toasted before I start filling it. Go in just like you're building your taco. Little meat, little onion, little quesadilla cheese. It's okay if some of the cheese creeps on to the outside. That just gets nice and crusty. Golden and toasted on the outside, gooey on the inside. And you've got flavor all around. You're not just putting this in a plain tortilla shell. You've seasoned that tortilla shell, gotten it good and toasty. It's just the best thing ever. I almost forgot to tell you, don't forget to reserve some of that good braising liquid. That is what we're going to dip these in. Kind of like a French dip sandwich, you know? This is like the best party food ever. Feeds a crowd. You should definitely make this if you want to impress someone. Takes a little time, but it is not hard and it is worth every single second. Y'all, you get your own personal bowl of dip, so you can double dip, triple dip, whatever you gotta do. But that is what makes this whole experience absolutely incredible. It is so toasty and lightly crispy on the outside, but the inside is so warm and savory and gooey. But the sauce, can't explain it. You don't have to feel like you have to go out to a restaurant to enjoy this goodness. This is the recipe for you to try, and when you do, don't forget to tag me and tell me how much you love me. Thank you. Give them a little stir and just let it, woo,